Hello and welcome. This is Pepin from Pepin Reacts. And here today we have my best friend, my friend. He's also a friend. His name is Meader.
I'm here too.
Yes, he is. And right out of the gate, we'll get to episode 52 of Breaking Bad eventually here, but we have to address the controversy. Meader, you want to start off with any comments here about it?
Yeah. I think this has kind of been a long time coming. It's finally being dragged out into the light. And, with the climate nowadays, it's not surprising it's getting the reaction that it is.
Yep.
So I think it's going to be really important to take the past into account, take where we're currently at, and take the future as well. The future will matter, especially with something as big as this. So,
yep.
That's the majority of what I have to say on the subject. Is just kind of keep everything in mind all at once. And
it's kind of like you can see the comments rolling in on each and every video that we release, and it gives you a sign, and you think, is this really a problem? And you just kind of ignore it. It's kind of like you see a dam and it's got cracks in it and it starts leaking water, and you're like, I don't know. I think we're gonna be fine. But ends up that mistakes may or may have not been made. I can't say exactly. Feelings may or may not have been hurt or denigrated, and maybe that's okay, maybe it's not, but I still think that we could be better. So thank you everybody for either forgiving or not forgiving us. That's up to you to decide. And in closing, I don't think Walt did anything wrong.
This has been very, very divisive in the comments for sure. In your inbox, you showed me a screenshot of your inbox. Unreal, nonstop. Either supporting or hating. There's nobody in the middle road. But you just gotta figure out where you land on that, and hopefully you can someday find forgiveness in your heart. Yep.
Oh, actually, there was one person in the middle road. His name was John. He actually sent a picture, and he was literally in the middle of the road. I mean, technically, that applies. Yeah, I don't even know why he sent a picture either. But
I don't know, but I loved that shirt.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah, podcast NH. I'm not sure if it's backwards on the screen here.
No, it's forwards for me.
Okay, it's backwards on my screen. So if you love podcasts, you should go to podcastnh.com. We actually have a podcast on there called We Need to Talk. That show's great, but there's other shows on there too. And you should definitely check out those shows if you're looking for any new podcasts, especially if you're having a long drive here. My friend Meader here, he actually runs Podcast NH as well as Podcast USA. So definitely check it out if you are looking for a new podcast.
Right on.
All right.
My baby's in the kitchen and she's making meaty pie. It's smelling so delicious that it's giving me a high. She asked me for assistance in getting out the food. It's hot inside the oven, but I sure don't need no tool. She asked me what I'm doing, says it's harder than it seems. She offers me protection, and I turn to her and scream. Real men use oven mitts, they're like a glove that never fits. They're always too big or always too small. Real men don't use them at all. All the knits are from the pits of hell. God cast them down with Satan they fell, but he couldn't stand them and they got in the brawl. So he sent them to earth and now they hang on my wall. Real men use all the knits.
Okay, that was season 2, episode 3 of Breaking Bad. This episode is mostly, I'd say, follow-up from the events of the previous 2 episodes. So, I'm trying to think where to start, because there's like 2 or 3 different pieces. Okay, so there's the Hank storyline, there's the Walt storyline, and then there's Jesse's storyline. I guess there's kind of the Skylar storyline too, but it's mostly caught up with the Walt storyline. What do you think would be the best place to take off, Meader?
You said Hank first.
All right, let's go with Hank. So, I said this during a reaction, but Hank, he's such a difficult character, really. I don't know. I don't know if you feel the same way I do. Obviously, you know more about Hank than I do, having seen the whole series, but it's like my like for him keeps going like, it's like a roller coaster. Like, he's got a very good sense of humor. His line delivery is just amazing sometimes. But he's just such a dick. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to get a good grasp on him. Do you have like a similar opinion, or?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like him, but he has some good lines. And he plays his character very well, like the actor does.
Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of taking it like I maybe like him a little bit more than you do, or
definitely.
Yeah, like may not be the right term, but then again, I kind of do. In the same way that I kind of like Walt when he gets super aggressive. Like, I wouldn't want to be around him. Neither would I want to be around Hank, really. But it's like that kind of aggressive sort of personality is very intriguing and very entertaining to watch. In the same regard, like Marie, she's got some interesting stuff there, but I think she's also got the destructive side or aggressive side or something like that, but it's a little less like good or a little less entertaining for me as it is like with just like Walt's pure and adulterated like rage, or Hank's just smarminess. But so Hank, he was being questioned about this altercation he had, and Marie seemed a little bit concerned because Hank seemed fine with it, and he seems fine with it. Like, he doesn't really seem like he was affected by what happened, but I don't know if they're foreshadowing something where maybe he's not fine on the inside.
Why do you say that?
Because, well, Marie's like, and she was talking about Hank over with Skylar, I think. She's like, Hank is taking just fine, because he's indestructible, but she seemed a little bit concerned about him still. Like, I don't know if it was just about his safety because he was in a shootout, or if it was something to do with this investigation that was happening. Like, that's something that might implicate him.
I don't know that I got that from it. I got more she felt mildly inconvenienced by the situation. She wasn't able to get to see him or go see them. Like, she wanted time with him, and he immediately got whisked away, was what she said. So, like, I feel like it was more her selfishly. She loves drama, so she fucking loves this.
I gotcha. And maybe I misread that a little bit, but because it panned over to Hank, and Hank seemed a little bit concerned because I think he was acting like he knew there's going to be questions that was coming up about like what's going on, like why we set the scene here alone, number one, and why was there a shootout that occurred? How did he get involved in this whole Tuco thing? Tuco already had a shot at him, and like there's all these different little threads. And why are you looking for Jesse Pinkman? Like, how did all these things like overlap into each other? So my assumption was maybe there's some worry about that, but I don't know, maybe a little bit of worry for Hank because but. You might be more right that she was being a bit more selfish there. But it seems like the guy that he was answering to, and there's 2 of them, but one of them, is that his boss? Because we saw him
the old guy's his boss.
Okay.
And then the other guy, I think, is like even higher than that.
Okay.
It's like an oversight for the DEA.
But they seemed just fine when all that happened, and so much so that even later they just kind of gave a party there. Which I'm getting pretty strong death flags from that. I can't say for certain, but I wouldn't be surprised if Hank dies by the end of the season.
Oh, that would be a big one, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because it's like you give someone it's almost like a birthday party or something, and they're congratulating him. I mean, I guess it shows the culture there at the place, but I think it also is a little bit of force. They always do that in shows. Like, they kind of have these moments, and then they die.
Yeah. I mean, everything centers around Walter White, right? So, like, everybody, like, everything that happens to other people is, in this show so far, has been a reflection of, because of what Walt's doing. Aside from Marie, honestly. Marie kind of, like, has her own thing going that's a little bit separated from Walt. But, so, like, later on, you know, not to jump around, but later on you see Walt in the house, and you and I talked during the episode about, like, what does that mean when he sneaks into his own house and sees the scene of his family struggling, and, like, being directly affected by Walt and Walt's actions. I think this shows how Walt's actions are affecting Hank, in that they actually, like, made him a superstar at his job. They're like, in a way, Walt is helping Hank.
It's kind of like a more complex version of karma, I guess. Because it's one of those things. It's like, to have a hero, you kind of need a villain, or you need something terrible to overcome. And in a way, Walt's creating a lot of misery and a lot of complications, especially in Skylar and Walt Jr.'s life. But he's also creating a chance for a hero. And not that I would call Hank or anything to be a hero, but at least as far as they can ascertain to their own personal values, you know, what Hank did was heroic, and what the DEA does is heroic. And that's a kind of maybe a more complex version of, like, a karmic sort of, like, proliferation through the world.
And obviously Hank and Walt's relationship is massively complicated, way beyond what Hank knows it to be. And Walter does understand how complicated it is. But I think Hank's discomfort that you mentioned when he was being interviewed was because Hank was there because Jessie was dealing drugs to Walt, as far as Hank knows. And he didn't want to implicate his brother-in-law in something illegal, especially something drug-related, when he's a DEA agent.
That's right.
I think that's why when he's like, "Why were you there?" and he looked at his boss, and his boss didn't really say anything, and he's like, "It was a personal matter," and his boss is like, "Well, you were looking for your brother-in-law," and he's like, "Yeah, but it wasn't related to drugs," like, is more or less what he said.
That's right, because that could potentially go back to, like he was looking for Jessie because he knew Jessie was dealing Walt's weed, supposedly, you know, and yeah, so that could implicate Walt in some sort of way.
Yeah, that's why he specifically said one of Walt's former students, not friends or anything like that. Like, he phrased things very specifically.
Yeah. And I guess it was enough of a win that they wouldn't really be alarmed, or, you know, they didn't delve any further, at least not for now. Who knows? Yeah. And I think there's one other scene with the Hank stuff, where they bring in the Tuco's Tio, and they do a bit of interrogation with them, and it kind of set up in a way where you think Jesse's screwed now because Jesse's gonna get ratted out, but Tio doesn't rat people out. He doesn't talk to DA, and kind of like I'm gonna say Emilio, I forget his name, Hank's partner. He's like, you know, I told you this guy was big. Like, you know, they're like OG. They don't, you know, rat out to the DEA. You know, like, doesn't even matter what the situation is. Which I think that kind of adds some character to the Tio, because it's kind of the vibe I would have too. Like, why would he do that? I mean, also, if you look at it from this perspective too, you know, certainly Walt and Jessie fought back and they killed, you know, Tuco, but Hank came there and shot him as well. I think he has more animosity towards the DA than he does Walt and Jessie, especially since Walt and Jessie weren't the aggressors there necessarily.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of like a drug dealer or any, like, anything criminal you're doing. The number one rule is you don't talk to the cops. You don't talk to the feds. That's, even if it's your worst enemy, you don't rat them. That's not, they are separate, and they are enemies to all, regardless of who your enemies are,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And he does seem to be there mostly, and he shot himself at the end there just to cause a mess to clean up, which...
Yeah, I mean, he was kind of answering Hank's question, too, and Hank said, you want to help us out, right? And his answer was to shit himself and, like, pretty much remove himself from the situation completely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, if we're being real, he probably can't help too much, even if he was compliant, because all we can do is answer, like, yes or no questions, essentially. So it would be a little bit tough, but yeah. I like the TO, because... he's got convictions. And he does his best with the limitations he has. And I think that's about it for Hank, unless you can think of anything else.
His partner's name is Gomez.
Gomez. Okay, Gomez.
Emilio was a different character. I think that was Crazy 8's real name.
I see.
So it could get really confusing if you give Gomez a different name that happens. I'd be being like, I forget Jesse's name. Let's just call him Walt.
Is there any chance that Emilio and Crazy 8 are the same person? Because that would make me not wrong. No?
Emilio and Crazy 8 are the same person, but Gomez and Emilio and Crazy 8 are two different people.
Wait, did I say Emilio and Crazy 8?
Was that his name? Or was Emilio his brother?
So Domingo was the one that Hank killed.
Domingo was Crazy 8.
Okay. That's
Emilio was his brother.
Okay, so Emilio,
or
Domingo,
cousin.
Gomez, the other person. I don't know.
Gomez, yeah.
We need like a character sheet or something.
Yeah. Throw up the graphic. I hope a word just popped. No.
No. Yeah, I'm not gonna edit that. So we have Crazy 8 and Emilio. They're dealing drugs, and now they're dead.
Now they're dead.
Okay,
and that's season 1.
All right, so we have Hank's storyline, and then Hank's storyline intersects a bit with let's go with Jesse's storyline. So Jessie and Walt, they're like in the middle of the desert. They decide to hide the gun, just kind of bury it. I think it would have been better to carry it, but then again, if they get pulled over or some cops come there, that's gonna be really hard to explain. And then it's probably gonna have like 2 code fingerprints on it. So I get it. It makes sense, I think, but it's a little bit questionable. But they end up going their separate ways because Jessie says like, I'm just gonna walk, but obviously Walt just can't keep walking. So they both have different strategies. Walt takes off on the truck, and then Jesse goes and he's talking to Badger, which really surprised Badger is still cool with Jesse. And also that, Jesse's cool with Badger. I guess he needs a friend. And they come up with this crazy idea to implicate himself. So this is a question here. Because the way I read that interaction was Jesse was trying to implicate himself to give him probable cause. That way he could clear his name. That way to stop suspecting him. Is that what happened?
Yeah, he was also giving himself an alibi with somebody who would be able to back up his alibi.
I see. And that person was Jesse, or was that person the hooker?
That person was Wendy.
Wendy? Is
Wendy and Jesse saying the same thing is ironclad for Jesse.
Okay.
Because what's the first thing cops say? Where were you at this time? Is there anybody who can corroborate your story? So he was giving them both things. Now,
are they a couple, or are they just like monetary relationship?
I think it's a monetary relationship.
Okay. That's what I thought there, but when Wendy was like, you want to go get flapjacks or something? it kind of seemed a bit more like a friendship, or like,
I mean, it seems like they're at least familiar enough with each other. This isn't the first time they've done business together. Like, they're friends in that way.
yeah, that's right. So
Closest thing Jessie has to a friend, arguably, moment. Maybe Badger and maybe Walt.
I mean, he had some other friends that came over, but it seems like all of his friends are kind of business partners too. Like,
they're all related to the drug world in some way.
yeah. Because I remember when he had that had those friends over, and you know, they started talking about the crystal and stuff like that, and he's like, "Oh, well, I got some shit that'll, do right before they're about to leave because they're bored."
Yeah.
Which we kind of experienced that a bit in college. Like, there'd be people who like would want to smoke weed, but or they only hang out with you if you're gonna smoke weed. People that are like that. So yeah, Jessie probably didn't have too many actual friends, except for Badger. Which do you like Badger?
He's pretty dumb.
Yep. I mean, he's a little bit loyal, so that's good. I think Badger is like a reference for Jessie, because like he's just a way to show how much Jessie has come. Like, because Badger was Jessie in a way. Like, Jessie had more potential, I think, than Badger the first time we saw him. That's always been the case, but I think the attitude and everything like that was Jessie, like the first episode we saw him.
Badger is to Jessie as Jessie is to Walt.
Yeah. Yeah. And Jessie, he is trying to work with Badger to get rid of supplies, and they brought it to Badger's cousins, who seems like he's reliable as far as we know.
As reliable as anybody in an underground business is going to be.
Yeah. And Badger was trying to like, hey, let's cook some meth. And he's like, no, let's not cook some meth. And went back and forth a little bit right there. And so eventually they go. So what happened after that? So they did that. What happened after they took away the truck there? I kind of forgot.
The DEA busted down the door with Jessie with Wendy.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. And Jessie, he's good on his feet, but he doesn't think too far ahead. Like, he has a response for anything, but he doesn't know like the multiple layers that might get brought up beyond that. Like, he talked about his car. My cell phone was in my car, and they're like, when we found your car, your cell phone wasn't in there, but there's this all this money. And he's like, oh, you found my car? That's great. Oh, that money's not mine. Like, he's a little bit too reactive, and I don't think he's thinking far enough ahead to do things. Whereas Walt, whenever he tells a lie, he tries to think about the long-term implications, it seems. Not that he's always perfect with it, but
you're always going to be in situations where you need to think ahead, and you're always going to be in situations where you need to be able to be reactive.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them were put in situations where they needed to do both. Jessie is way better at being reactive than Walt is, and a much better liar, in my opinion. Jessie needed to be reactive in that room, because as far as like the story he was trying to tell was he didn't know anything. So like, that's being reactive is the way to get the most genuine reaction to what's going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
If your job is to not know anything. Meanwhile, when Walt had to be reactive, his only defense was, I don't remember. Mm-hmm. And that didn't work on most of the people he talked to. It seemed like the doctors kind of were thinking that was bullshit. The psychiatrist obviously thought it was bullshit. And at the end, Skylar thought it was bullshit. So, for all of Walt's planning, couldn't plan everything.
Mm-hmm. Maybe in that instance, Walt glossed to his hubris, I think might be the term. I don't know. Because he thought just the, like, amnesia, like, or delirium or dissociation, like, he just thought that would work as an excuse. And he overestimated his own medical thoughts and knowledge. And yeah, like he has extreme competence, but not enough competence in that field. And yeah, there's a mismatch there. Jesse, I don't think would lie about anything he doesn't know about. Like he's just like, I don't know, man, it just happened. It's like here, there, I don't know. But so he gets off, and then he gets a call from Walt a little bit later saying, "Hey, let's cook meth." And Jesse's just like kind of out of it. He just like doesn't want to do it. But I have a feeling that Jesse's gonna get back into it with him. But yet to be seen. Also, is Jesse gonna go back to his house? I assume he is.
I mean, now he can, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing illegal there, and he got released by the cops.
I guess the main thing that might draw him back to cooking meth is the fact that he has $80 to his name.
Yeah, he has no money anymore.
So he might see that as the reason. If Jesse was being responsible, he might actually get a job. He called his dad. His dad didn't believe him. It's like, have you ever gotten like phone calls or messages from people like that?
Yes.
And your reaction is pretty much like the dad's reaction is.
I mean, yes. I didn't. The last time I got a message like that, I just didn't respond to it. And the time before that, I was like very straightforward. No, I'm not interested in assisting you in this.
Yeah.
But it's never been from like somebody really close. It's always been from people who are like on the outer ring, like old acquaintances, just kind of looking to, I don't know. Not good. I don't know well enough to know if like there's truth there or not. So
Yeah. It's when they start off with a story about how they've changed, there's an issue.
that's fair.
So I think that's pretty much Jesse's storyline. Is there anything that we haven't discussed or brought up? Okay, and then let's go with Walt's storyline, and we kind of touched on this a little bit here, but at first I thought maybe Walt's whole thing was all right, but the more that you say that he's a terrible liar, which I don't think is entirely true. I think he's done some good lies.
I just don't think he's as good as Jesse.
I think he's better. Yeah, I think he's better on his feet. Jesse's a lot better on his feet. I think Walt's better at the long con. I mean, yeah, but so his whole thing about losing memory, that's a pretty bad lie. This whole thing about like getting naked and stuff, like that was, I thought he really had like I don't know, overheated brain or something, but no, he did it on purpose, which was kind of dumb on his part.
You misread his initial facial expression. That kind of set you down the wrong path very early on. His initial facial expression was like, I can't believe I'm doing this. And then he went blank because he was acting at that point. But initially when he first got noticed, he was like,
I see.
Like super frustrated that he has to do this, and what have I gotten myself into? Yeah,
and that was a pretty bad lie too, or a bad plan in general, because it creates something that's going to be really hard to explain. But he had to integrate back into society, or not society, back into his family, and I guess the other aspect to that is he needs a way to get the money, because the money is the biggest thing. So the question for him is how to do that. When he was talking to Skylar and Walt Jr. initially, before he started doing like all the like, my memory, like it seemed like he was genuine, like with, like, so good to see you guys. Like it makes it clear he does care about his family.
Yep.
And he then gets very wishy-washy. And one thing that I found interesting, and again, this is maybe overanalyzing body language from actors, of course, but Skylar kept on looking over towards the doctors when Walt was saying this stuff, because she wasn't looking for confirmation from Walt. She was looking for confirmation from the doctors. And so she's not really trusting Walt's word as much. I mean, sure enough, Walt potentially had amnesia here as far as they were saying. So it kind of makes a little bit of sense to lean into doctors, but at the same time, I think she's distrusting what Walt is saying more and more here, and more interested in what the doctors are saying, or like professionals.
That second cell phone is all she's thinking about, like clearly. This is the first thing she brings up when they're together.
Yep. And she I've said this before, but she reminds me a lot of my girlfriend, because it's kind of how my girlfriend would be if there was something like that. Like, she would be very in the moment during that, say, reunion there, and she'd be very focused on that. But then, when you get home, she'd be a little bit distant, because she knew she'd be having to bring this thing up here, the question behind the question. Right? And so they're talking about like getting psychiatric evaluation and everything, and Walt's plan backfired. And he's just like so not into doing that. But number one, because it goes against his whole thing for not taking the money from gray matter, not being in chemo, not doing all these different things. And it's just like, oh, now you got to deal with this other shit and be like babied and everything. And he's just not having it. And that would be me right there too. Like if I was in Walt's situation, I mean, even if I didn't like say fake this whole being naked in public sort of thing, I'd be very irritated that I was in a situation where I'd have to start doing psychiatric evaluations. I mean, not that that's bad, but I wouldn't want to be forced into that situation.
I mean, he put himself in that situation though.
Yeah. Well, it's true. He put himself in that situation. I still think he has the ability, or not the ability, but he's still right to be mad that that's kind of taking away from him. I mean, obviously he could still leave, but he's in a situation where Skylar and Walt Jr. are not going to make him. They're going to like kind of make him do it essentially, kind of like with some of the other stuff, like the group therapy. He goes through the psychiatric evaluation. He gets clarification on what is confidential and what's not, which I think what the doctor said was confidential wasn't quite accurate, because if someone's going to commit suicide, that's something, or if it's something that endangers somebody's life, including that person's life, then it's something they have to say. They're free to disclose that to certain people. Not just if you're going to like kill somebody, you have to tell that person, because you may not even know who that person is. I'm going to kill, I don't know, Jane Austen, if that's a person. And it's just like,
it's an author.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to kill Jane Austen. And then the psychiatrist is like, oh crap, now I got to find out who this Jane Austen person is. And then you just have to get the phone number. Hey, this person's going to kill you. It just seems very inefficient.
Just after a session with somebody, Deborah, get in here. Deborah, get the president on the phone.
I can't tell anybody else except for the president himself.
This is only for the president.
By law.
Bob's gonna kill you. Wait, who the fuck's Bob? That's all I can say.
Yeah, confidentiality laws here. And so Walt gives his rationale or his reasons, which it's one of those things where it's like a truth, but also a lie. It's a lie by omission, but he gave all the truthful reasons to why he's fed up with his situation. And I don't think that makes his situation bad, or I don't think he doesn't like his son. I don't think he doesn't like Skylar. I don't think he didn't like aspects of his life. He definitely still is a family man in a lot of ways. But I think his fed upness is still accurate of just dealing with those issues and just dealing with people and not feeling in control. And so I think that was the truth within the lie.
Yeah. And then he has a lot of resentment.
What do you think about his aggression he was showing during that process?
That is like something that he's finding easier and easier to fall into when he was very uncomfortable with it a long time ago. Now he leans into it. Mm-hmm. And he uses it to get out of a lot of situations. Mm-hmm. But kind of the aggression when he's telling the truth, he gets very aggressive. So maybe that's it's becoming more of his true self. And when he's lying, he's like massively submissive.
That's true. That's true. That kind of goes to like maybe a later point, but something I noticed this episode is there was a very clear flip between Skylar and Walt in as far as roles go. Because in the first season, it was like there's this internal world that Walt has, and then Skylar is trying to look into it and trying to understand it. And so it's like Skylar has this internal world, and now Walt is trying to look into it and affect it. And so it's kind of reversed right there. And I think it's kind of true in a way, because now that Walt is telling these lies and everything, the people that he was having or was ignoring the previous seasons because he was trying to just focus on the internal feelings and stuff with himself. Now he has to focus on these other people and kind of know what they think and feel, because otherwise his lie's going to get caught out just very easy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely, I think it'll continue to be interesting, like how roles change and progress. Especially if Walt's going back to cooking, like how's he gonna do that? He's already in a sketchy place with Skylar, so like I know he said that before he had the phone conversation or the at-home conversation with Skylar. Will that change anything? Will that change, how he acts or anything? Or any decisions that he makes?
There's a theme of him leaving them, and I think a couple things were happening there. But one thing I think is that, like, when he snuck into the house, like as if he's a stranger, and then he hid the gun, hid the money, which I think is also an analogy. Also, is tying him back to the house, because that's his plan now. Because he had the money ready to run, which I think was a bad idea too, because it's just out in the middle of nowhere. What if Skylar just wants to check out the diapers? Just like, hey, this was gonna go on this young guy here, or girl, or whatever it is. But that's kind of a bad sketchy plan. But it ties him there. But the way he was looking in through the door crack, there's some sort of metaphor going on there. Definitely something aspect of him looking in on a life where he's not there. Also, like you're saying, looking into the karmic effects of what he's been doing. But I also feel like it's a bit almost like the door is closing on that relationship, and he's only able to see through just a little crack there. Do you have any ideas on that metaphor, or what could be going on there?
I mean, I stand pretty tight to that was seeing what his actions had caused. Especially when the next shot is showing the wanted poster and the missing poster. And that's pretty literal of Walt was missing from their life. Which can also lend to the idea that Walt's going to be dead. And he kept staring at that painting, with what you can assume is a family standing on the beach with a male figure sailing off on a little rowboat by himself. So Walt kind of felt like that was him leaving the family, and he said, I'm going to be dead in however many months. So in a way, it was also how are they going to get by without me? And seeing how hard it is without him there. It's I think there were a lot of things at play there. Future, him being missing. Currently, how is him missing affecting the family, and the actions he's taking affecting the family?
He sneaks back to the hospital, which I think was a little bit weird. And he badly puts back in the IV. I'm surprised they didn't notice he was gone. Like, that seems a little bit far-fetched to me, but then again, who knows? Right? It's a TV show, some level of
suspended disbelief.
Yeah. And then he goes back there. It seems like Walt Jr. is very happy to see him. Also, Walt Jr. was trying to get him to drink some apple juice, which sort of looked like urine. I don't know if that was like something, but I guess it's just how apple juice looks. So I'm looking far too into it, but he doesn't want to do it, and he seems like he's feeling offended. I mean, not offended. He's feeling annoyed because he's being babied into doing it. Also, he doesn't feel like it's necessary because it's almost like you get caught in a lie and like you have to do something. Like here's a good instance. This is like a weird side. Like a while back, went to a strip club, and then it's like I got back around like 1 p.m. like into town, and there was this convenience store, and it said open, right? So I go in and I try to like get in there, and the door's locked, and I'm like, what? And so I kind of just try to pull it again, and because it seems like they're open, but obviously they were locked and everything. So I go back to my car, and some cops all of a sudden just like show up, and they start looking in my back seat, and they're like, hey, so what you doing here? I'm like, oh, I was trying to get some energy drinks. Like, they're closed. I'm like, no, I thought they were open. They're closed, right? So what are you doing? And they're like looking in my back seat for crowbars and everything. Not like physically, but with the flashlight and everything. And they interrogate me for like 10 minutes. And they're like, eventually like, so it doesn't seem like you're doing anything, but if you need some energy drinks, there's a place open over there. And it's like 10 minutes away. So I was like, shit. Now I gotta go drive to that place and get some energy drinks. So that's what I ended up doing, and that's kind of what happened here. Walt got caught in a lie, and he's like, not that I was lying, but he gets caught in something.
That's the part that I'm confused. Like, where was the lie there? Like,
okay, there was no lie.
Why were Nate? They were closed, right?
Yes.
Now, you did say that you were trying to get in at 1 p.m. You also know that's the afternoon, right?
1 a.m. is what I meant.
What?
Okay,
were you at the strip club from the nighttime until 1 a.m. the next day, 1 p.m. the next day, or did you go to the strip club at 8 a.m. in the morning? Because that's pretty fucked up.
I am tired.
And now I have some questions.
1 a.m. It was after midnight. Let me be clear about that. I thought they were open. And now that I said that I was looking for energy drink, he's like, there's one down there. I felt like I was compelled to now go down there and get some energy drinks. Because otherwise it'd be even more suspicious of me.
There's some inconsistencies with your story, Nate. We're going to have to take you in for questioning.
During that whole event, like, some people would be scared and everything. I was just, like, annoyed that they were just, like, inconveniencing me for, like, 10, 15 minutes. And that's kind of how I felt for Walt there. Walt got caught in a lie there. I was not lying. I did not try to break into that place. But Walt was very inconvenienced by that, and I was very inconvenienced with this too. So that's the sense I got. And he gets back, and I think he was happy to be back, but also he was trying to fake it a little bit because he needed to create that like re-engagement and kind of reconnection there. And it worked a little bit with Walt Jr., but not with Skylar. And Skylar is there, and Walt tries to live in the mood with. There's something weird going on where he had his Heisenberg hat on, but also just like naked. And of course, it's kind of funny in a way, but also it's kind of like, is there something more being said there? Like, this is the birth of Heisenberg? I don't know. Is Heisenberg the baby? There's a lot of places that could go. But Skylar's not having any of it. Brings up the second cell phone. Walt lies badly. Which
I'm thinking about Heisenberg baby. And then I was thinking that maybe the baby is meth. And then I was like, Skylar gives birth, and the doctors are like, this is the purest baby we've ever seen. Sorry.
That would
Comes
be
out
amazing. Hank's just like, this is where it's coming from. It all makes sense.
Heisenberg. And the baby has a little hat on. That was cool though that you noticed the hat on the light, because I definitely didn't notice that. But your analysis of the nightstands always being, indicative of the thought processes of and characteristics of the characters, and that Walt's nightstand had pretty much only the hat on it is very interesting.
I didn't see
Maybe it's like even when Walt is like bare, he's still like Heisenberg, or like when Walt is completely stripped down, he's Heisenberg. That's his raw form,
I do think that is accurate. And I feel like this myself sometimes. Like, I feel like there's like, I don't believe in a true self, so I don't think that is a real thing. But we could say maybe it's metaphorically there. Like, it's a good heuristic. But it's like, I feel like a lot of what I do is wrapping myself into a way that's presentable to other people in society and stuff. And a lot of what it is kind of just having to deal with like the idiocies or the inconveniences and just like the annoyances with just life. And you have to wrap it up in a way that is, I don't know, dealable with that sort of stuff. Like Walt was kind of dealing with that stuff, like, just kind of going through and slogging. And I still think that base self that's there, that just does not want to deal with that, is just so sick and tired of it, and just wants to have that sense of control of the reaction of what's happening. Like, he wants to be able to, again, I think it goes back to control. I think that is base Walt. I think the Walt that we saw in that flashback with, forget her name, but that lady from Grey Matter, I think that is the base Walt. The Walt that is excited about chemistry, reactions, and manipulating, controlling things. Not necessarily the social side, but the chemical side. And I think that is the Walt that's there. And I think you're right about that. Maybe it is a double meaning, Heisenberg's birth in a way, but also kind of like that is just him laid bare, and it's still there. It will be very interesting to see how Heisenberg kind of progresses through this, because I think that's right, because it's not, this story so far is not really Walt becoming Heisenberg. It's more like the layers of Walt get stripped off and Heisenberg is revealed.
Heisenberg becoming Walt. I'd illusion it to Deathnote and Light and Kira, and that those are same person but they're not. The same way that Walt and Heisenberg are the same person but they're not.
So slight spoilers for Deathnote a little bit. I mean, it's not too crazy of a spoiler, but
I mean, okay. I'm like, that Light's Kira is like episode 2.
Yeah. I mean, not spoilers in that way, but it's kind of like Kira and Light are the same person. Like, the show actually goes to straight lengths to kind of examine that, with the whole arc where Kira or Light loses his memory, and then he starts slowly becoming back to Kira just through pure reasoning. And so all the tools to become Kira was there. It's almost like Kira is Light, just in a different context. And Heisenberg is Walt, but just in a different context. It's not clear that Heisenberg would have ever come out unless there was that diagnosis of cancer, unless there's the impetus for him to kind of act in an aggressive, violent sort of way. And it was almost like not quite happenstance, but this kind of happened that way. And if there was another thing happening here, if Walt never got that diagnosis or anything, it's probable that Heisenberg never would have, revealed himself. He never would have taken off those layers.
And how much of it is the outside world slowly turning up the heat on the frog in the water, versus, hit the frog turning up the heat itself? It's more that the contents of Walt are having to change and get more and more radical because circumstances are becoming more and more radical. How much of that is him making the decision to escalate versus the world escalating around him and him having to meet it? Like from the beginning, right? He started out very not aggressive, and circumstances forced his hand to become aggressive. He fought tooth and nail to not be aggressive until the very last moment where he forced the universe to force him to be aggressive by having to kill Crazy 8 in self-defense versus in, cold blood. And then slowly from there, he's had to continue to escalate as that situation continues to spiral crazier and crazier.
It's almost in a way that the meth they're making is a reflection of that, because the meth they're making is purer and purer of a substance, and in a way, as the meth gets purer, like Walt is kind of getting purer himself, or
more corrupted.
You could say it that way. I think he's a more pure version of himself, like when he is in that state, and I think the purest version of Walt honestly would not be like the more aggressive, like murderous sort of Walt. I think it would be more like the scientific Walt who is making an amazing discovery. But I think the analogy here is, Walt doesn't do drugs. I mean, he did some weed, I think, that one episode, and he's drank a little bit. But, Walt's not going to smoke meth. But I don't think he needs to smoke meth. I think the making of meth and the power he gains, just what he's doing and how he can have an excuse to act violently now. In the same way that Hank kind of gets off on that too. I think Hank and Walt are kind of two sides of the same coin, just in different contexts. One is supported by the government, the other is demonized and attacked by the government. I think they're both getting off on the same thing, which is that sense of power, that sense of control, which also ties back to Marie. Marie is also getting off on that. And it's a drug in itself. Does Walt need meth? No, he doesn't need meth. Meth is making meth in this whole drug trade is the avenue through which Walt can kind of get his high, and he's addicted to it now.
Walt doesn't need meth. Meth needs Walt. Think about it.
Do you think the baby is going to have a name?
Yeah.
Okay. I kind of thought for a little bit there that they might actually not name the baby, and it would just be like amorphous.
It's going to be meth.
It's going to...
Methylamine.
Methylamine. I have a friend. He named his baby, or his wife did, or his girlfriend, named the baby Myelin, which is actually just like a chemical name or something like that. Or maybe a drug namer. It's a nice name. But it would be pretty funny if someone named their baby after, I don't know, meth. Methylamine. Hey, Methylamine, come over here.
That sounds like you're talking to a dog.
I mean, for being honest, if I had to name my daughter, top candidates would be Historia, number one. That's a great name. Number two would be Daenerys, or Khaleesi would also be acceptable. And finally, granted that girls tend to like horses, Mustang would be the third option.
You're going to get sued by Ford.
Well, let's hope so, because that could be some good money for me.
No, that's how suing works. They're gonna sue you for your daughter.
Well, she will be a pure workhorse, so it'll be fine.
Purest. It's the purest baby.
This whole show was just about platonic forms and how.
Little did you know.
Okay, anything else before we end this meter?
No.
Okay, so this was a reaction to a show called Breaking Bad. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it stars Walter Williams in the show called Superbad. So if you love this video, definitely leave a love. If you like this video, definitely react to it, because a reaction to a reaction is a comment in the field down below. You know, favoriting a video, that doesn't do much. Liking a video, that does something. Commenting, even better. Subscribe, ding, 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 bells all around for you to clap of the hands. Emojis. Fun. Despair. I've despaired once or twice. It wasn't fun, but watching this video is. So you guys, have a great day. Peace. This was Pepin and Meader from Pepin Reacts.